She's cold. It got down to about 30-ish last night, but today's video is going to be about second gens and whether I think they're worth buying or not, and my experience with it so far and all that jazz. So let's turn it off and start talking about it. Okay, so what's up everybody? My name's Gary, this is Killer Off-Road Hobbies, and we're gonna go over second gens. Now you have basically two kind of levels of second gen. You have the 94 to 98, which are gonna get the 12 valve Cummins in, and then you got the 98.5 to 2002, which are gonna get the 24 valve in. Basically they're kind of the same, kind of different. There's not a whole lot of differences, but you do have plug and play options and stuff with the 24 valves, and basically it's all mechanical stuff when you're talking about 12 valves. And specifically today, since I own a 96 12 valve, we'll just be talking about 12 valves. So basically 94 to 98. All right, so this is a 96, like I said, 12 valve Cummins with the P pump. It did come with the 5-speed manual, the NV 4500, which is supposedly supposed to be a pretty good transmission, as you can see right here. Yay! What's that? First, second, third, fourth, and fucking fast. Very nice. And then you got reverse, but who wants to go backwards? All right, so we'll just blaze through the interior of this truck. This is the base model. Basically, you had two options: regular bed, long bed, or I guess you could call it short bed, long bed. This, as you can see, is the long bed version. Not a whole lot. It does have a cigarette lighter. It does have cup holders that let your drink spill everywhere if you go around a corner. It does have an ashtray. That's pretty cool. Manual roll-up windows, and this did come with AC, so that's actually nice because where I live gets really hot during the summer. And as you can see, you know, it's not in terrible shape for being a 96, but the headliner has seen better days, I'm sure. Hopefully it didn't come like that stock out of the box, but you know, that's just kind of it. And you know, it can seat a couple people comfortably in the front and then uncomfortably in the back. There is no doors on these on the 94 to 98. There's no option for the doors in the back. That's a 98.5 to 2002 option. But you know, if you get that version, you're gonna have a whole lot more problems because those doors tend to, you know, not seal very well, not close very well, not open very well. But this truck is 24 years old, so I can't be too hard on it, but I do have some things to say about this thing for sure. So basically this thing's got a leveling kit. I've got a set of 35 1250s on here and sitting on 20-inch rims, not too shabby. This was kind of a, I don't know if this was like aftermarket or some kind of jazz, but it looks like it was supposedly supposed to have some kind of special paint job, I guess. They did the Rhino line afterwards. That wasn't factory. I'll just kind of take you guys around her a little bit. Anyways, so the story with this truck. I got this truck for $8,500. Now, I'm not sure where you live, if that's a good price or not, but where I live and how desired these trucks are, that is what people would call a deal where I live. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but you know, I paid the money out, I got the truck, and now I'm kind of telling you guys about my experiences. So with this truck has 271,000 miles on it, and for some reason my street is the busiest it's ever been because I'm out here recording, of course. Okay, so I got this for $8,500, and supposedly where I live, that's a screaming deal. It's supposed to be a pretty rare truck because it's the 215 horsepower, because it does have the 5-speed manual in it. So I've been told, not 100% sure, I haven't really looked into it too heavy, but I've been told this is pretty much a unicorn truck. But I know the 98 12 valve 5-speed is the super rare truck, because that's the last truck that came with the 12 valve. So I know this is 2 years prior to that, but apparently because it has a manual transmission and it's the 215 horsepower P pump 12 valve, apparently this is a pretty desired truck. I wasn't aware of that when I bought this. I just wanted a manual because this guy's an automatic and I felt like I wanted a manual. And so I waited and found a manual. And in California, 96 or 97 and older are smog exempt, which is another big reason why I wanted to get this truck. Now we'll go ahead and pop the hood and check out the minimal upgrades I've done. So as you can see right away, I've done the intake horn. It does have a cold air intake over here, and I have had the P pump properly tuned. There she is in all of her glory right there. And I did get the killer dowel pin addressed and a new gasket on the timing cover. New serpentine belt, new batteries, new this, new that, lots of new stuff on this truck, this old truck. All right, so are these trucks worth buying? I'll give you my opinion on that at the end of this video, but what I am going to say is if you're wanting to get a 12 valve, or basically just a second gen in general, you have to understand that these trucks are old, like old in truck years. And these trucks, although the running gear, you know, the axles and the motor, the transmission, the manual transmission is a good transmission. The clutches weren't all that great. But as far as like the important components on these trucks, they're pretty solid. You know, these 12 valves, you can make a lot of power if you have a lot of money. Some people would debate that. They say, oh, you don't have to put a bunch of money into a 12 valve to make it have lots of power. It depends on what you call a lot of money, because I spent what I would consider to be quite a bit of money on this truck, and it doesn't have a lot of power, and I haven't done a whole lot, but it's been quite a bit of money. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Anyways, as far as it goes, you just have to understand this truck, like a lot of the second gens you're going to find, you know, this truck has almost 300,000 miles on it, which means almost everything on this truck is at the end of its service life. It needs to be replaced. Depending on the previous owner, whether they took really good care of it and, you know, fixed things as it went along and replaced things at service times, you know, that is going to be something you probably want to investigate pretty heavily before you purchase one of these. Or you could end up in a situation like me where you fix something and immediately something else goes out. So you're constantly chasing around the truck over and over and over again, parts going out as soon as you fix something else. So let's just talk about the front ends on these trucks real quick. Okay, so the front ends on these trucks, the whole design, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely ridiculously stupid. And I can't believe that Dodge got away with designing something this poorly designed, and with it being on trucks as long as it's been on trucks, and basically not being addressed. So Dodges this thing called bump steer, and bump steers can be kind of scary if you're not used to it and you're not sure what it's all about. But after bump steer comes death wobble. Dodge death wobble, and that stuff is no joke. No joke at all. And basically, I'll just get down here and show you guys. I have basically replaced every piece under here. Mostly, I mean, not everything. And it still drives like shit. Absolute shit. I've got the dual steering stabilizers right there. I've got the single stock one up in there. Hopefully you guys can see it. And then I've even got this brace right here, the good brace, that is supposed to not allow it to death wobble, which that's a joke because it definitely death wobbled with that on there. I've replaced the ball joints, the track bar, the tie rod ends, the steering stabilizer, and it still literally drives like shit, which means that my power steering box needs to be replaced. You can, I would never do it. I would never suggest anybody ever do it, but you can adjust the screw on the top of your box to take some of the slop out. But as I just said, I would never suggest it, and I would never do it myself, because that's playing with fire. You can take some slop out of your steering, but you also can lock your steering box up and get into an accident. So I would not do that. I wouldn't suggest it, as I just said. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is the stock turbo, but there's nothing wrong with this turbo right here. It's nice and tight. There's no slop in it at all, which means if this is the stock turbo and it's never been rebuilt, it has almost 300,000 miles on it. So another thing that happens on these 12 valves and 24 valves is the manifolds will start distorting from the heat cycles, and you can tell if your manifold bolts are at a skew. Now, luckily, this truck, it's not bad at all, and it's got almost 300,000 miles on it. I mean, hopefully you can see that. I mean, it's a little bit off straight, but I've seen them like almost sideways. So I do want to replace the manifold on this truck, but that's one thing to look for. Now, another thing that is really common with these things is that the front main seal starts leaking, and this thing definitely has a front main seal leak, as you can tell by all the nice little spots this leaves all over my driveway. Like I said, old truck, and you're just gonna be chasing your tail as far as fixing stuff, because these trucks are old and most of them have a lot of miles on them. Most people don't take very good care of these trucks because they're like, oh, it's a 12 valve Cummins, it'll run forever, that's a 1,000,000-mile motor. So they just assume the entire truck will go 1,000,000 miles without needing a single dollar or minutes worth of maintenance, which is like literally what a lot of people do with these trucks. So I did replace the clutch in this thing. If you've seen my videos, it's got a Valor dual disc clutch in it. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that. I'm just about out of the break-in period. I've got about 490 miles on that clutch, and stay tuned for that because I'll talk more about that. But as I was saying, basically you end up chasing your tail when you start fixing stuff. So I fixed the clutch, and now my seal went out for my slip yoke right there. So that's awesome. So now I got to replace that. And you can see up in here, it's just spraying oil everywhere. So that was not leaking at all until I had to pull my drive line to pull the transmission and transfer case out to replace my clutch. And I got a new carrier bearing right there. So, and the new, you know, straight pipe 4-inch exhaust from MBRP. Okay, so to kind of wrap this up for you guys, my whole feelings on getting yourself a second gen. Okay, so there are several pros and cons. Pro, they are relatively easy to work on. Another pro, as far as diesels go, the parts are relatively cheap. Now, that's not saying that it's cheap to fix these things, because it's absolutely not. But parts, as far as the diesel world, they're pretty cheap. Well, they're cheaper than most other diesel stuff. So 12 valves, you know, you can get really good power out of them too. They're really reliable engines. And what I have to say is that you know, it kind of depends on what you want to do. It depends on like how much you're willing to work on your truck, how much money you're willing to invest in a truck that's 24 years old. Because I'm going to tell you guys right now, like, not including the buying price, I'm about 10 grand deep into this truck, maybe even a little bit more. And I haven't even really put go fast parts on this thing yet. And I'm still chasing all kinds of issues that this truck has. It needs a power steering box. I have to replace that seal, not a huge deal, but it is still work and money that has to go out. The clutch feels kind of funky. You know, we did it correctly and everything, so I'm gonna go ahead and change out the slave cylinder, see if that works. But you know, just be aware that I know people online and people on YouTube and people on diesel channels and everything will say, oh, you know, just get yourself a 12 valve. You can do this, that, and the other thing. But you know, they talk about money like people, like everybody in the world has tens of thousands of dollars to just blow on a vehicle and know their bills. You know, they don't have to pay their mortgages, they don't have families and have to, you know, basically, you know, pay for life. So I'll just leave it kind of with that. Like, if you get one of these vehicles, you know, I had myself a budget. I've surpassed my budget by a couple $1,000s, and I was convinced that this thing would have at least a new turbo, if not like compounds, injectors, you know, valve springs, rods, all, you know, the whole shenanigans to make this thing about a 500 horsepower truck. I was convinced with that $10,000 that I could do that with this truck, and I'm nowhere close. I mean, all this truck has modification wise: intake, tune, you know, the P pump's tuned, no lift pump, nothing like that on this truck. So there's another world you can kind of go into with that. You can buy somebody's project. The whole reason I bought this truck is because it wasn't somebody's toy. It was an old guy. He owned it, he used it, and he didn't soup it up, which is why I bought it with almost 300,000 miles on it. Is because, you know, if the P pump would have been tuned, I mean, they did try to tune the P pump, but they weren't very successful at it. But you know, if the P pump would have been tuned, lift pump, you know, a couple go fast parts, I probably wouldn't have bought this truck, because I know how hard people beat on these things once they get them, you know, decent horsepower. So that's another side of the argument that you could look into. If you get something with all those hopped up parts, most likely it's for the reason that the person wanted to drive the truck hard. You know, you don't build a truck up to baby it around town. You blow going stop signs, you know, you take off hard, blowing black smoke and stuff like that. So I want to do that with this truck, which putting the 4K governor springs and tuning the P-pump made a huge difference. This is a completely different truck than the truck I bought. It went from being completely gutless to it pulls pretty good in third and fourth gear. Even fifth gear pulls pretty hard. Is it as fast as the Duramax? Not even close. And I don't have a whole lot done to the Duramax either. It's pretty much just got a tuner and a couple goodies on it. Anyways, so what I would say to any possible buyer of a second gen, especially like a 12 valve, I don't even think I'd buy a 24 valve, because those things just have so many issues. Like the whole interiors, like the interior of this truck is so simple that it's kind of hard to be completely jacked up. But the 24 valves with the extra doors and stuff, and the possible electric windows and stuff like that, I don't even want one of those trucks, because that's just a whole nother, whole nother list of stuff that just goes wrong. And it's not like, will it go wrong? It's when it goes wrong. So I'm happy with the basic stuff on this, but I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. I definitely got spoiled by my Duramax. My Duramax I consider to be a farly superior truck. I do have the 07 Classic LBZ, so I did do my research and try to find a used, like the best used, relatively inexpensive version that I could. But anyways, guys, that's kind of my spiel. Personally, if I had to do over it again, I would have never bought this 12 valve. I'm actually trying to get rid of it right now, because I just don't like it. Honestly, I don't like it. I don't like fixing something and then something else going out, like literally the second I start driving it after I fix something. Like I said, that kind of comes with the old truck territory, but I'm just not a fan. Not a fan at all. The 12 valve, it's cool. It sounds good. Pretty gutless stock. A little bit of tuning will get you a little bit of power, but I mean, you're gonna have to have a decent amount of money saved up if you really want to get into these, unless you just don't care about all the maintenance stuff. You don't care about the transfer case leaking. You don't care about the the front main seal leaking. If you don't care about all the little stuff, if you don't care about this leaving spots all over your driveway, you don't care about like keeping the maintenance up on everything, then it's kind of in your court. But as far as me personally, I'd never do it again. No, I will. I can honestly tell you guys right now, I'll never ever in my life buy another second gen Dodge. To me, these trucks are just not built very good. The front end situation totally kills it for me. To have that much money put in my front end so far and it still drives like shit, I can't deal with that. That just completely kills the whole truck for me. And the fact that, like, to get this thing anywhere near what I thought I was going to be able to do would cost me at least, I'd say, $7,000 to $10,000 more dollars. And that's just to have a 500 horsepower truck. Like literally, that's just to have a 500 horsepower truck. Where, I could spend $3,000 or $4,000 on my Duramax and have it right about 500 horsepower. And then, if I want to go further than that, I'd have to build the transmission and stuff, which would cost me a whole lot of money. But I just think the newer trucks are better. That's just my personal opinion. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack from Cummins lovers and stuff like that, but the 12 valve just doesn't do it for me. These trucks are way too much maintenance. I am constantly, non-stop, all the time working on this thing. Always buying new parts, always having to fix something. And it's just, it's run me out of patience for these old trucks. All right, everybody, so that's my spiel. Know this video was kind of long. Thanks to everybody that made it to this point. Like, share, subscribe, or dislike if you don't like people that don't like Cummins trucks, I guess. And then we will see you on the next one. Peace.